So continuing our discussion on Secret Wars, the events in this story provide us with some insight into what happened to the various characters who were transported across Battleworld by Doctor Strange prior to his death at the hands of Doom, but also brings the rumblings of Revolution into full swing. Before we get into this though, something I want to touch on here are the territories of Bar Sinister, Inferno, and Age of Apocalypse, due to the fact that the armies of these three territories will be a major part of the Revolution in this story. Bar Sinister is pretty straightforward in that it's run by Mr. Sinister, presumably the version from the main Marvel Universe, and occupied entirely of clones of himself. Inferno is a territory based on the 1988 story of the same name, where it was revealed that a woman named Madeline Pryor was a clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister and introduced after Jean Grey died in an effort to procreate with Scott Summers and produce a child with incredible power who would actually go on to become Cable. During the Inferno event, Madeline Pryor had lost her mind after learning that she was a clone and in turn allied herself with demons from the dimension of Limbo, attempted an invasion and takeover of Earth, but ultimately failed. However, in terms of the Battleworld territory and the character that we'll see in this story, this version of Madeline hails from a universe where she was successful in taking over the world. Finally, Age of Apocalypse is another straightforward story which focuses on a universe where Apocalypse was never destroyed by Magneto during the Age of Apocalypse event, and instead continued to rule the world. Now in terms of Secret Wars, when we covered issues 4 and 5, I had left out a couple of segments since they didn't play a major role at the time, but because of the events taking place in part 7, we need to jump back and cover a couple of these things. In issue number 4, when Doctor Strange had stood against Doom over the fact that he had created Battleworld as a testing ground rather than a utopia, during the conflict, Strange had teleported the survivors of the Ultimate Universe and the main Marvel Universe to different locations across Battleworld. Where issues 5 and 6 largely focus on both versions of Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe and main Marvel Universe respectively, as well as Peter Parker and Miles Morales in their efforts to locate the source of Doom's power and eliminate it, the story also explained what happened to Jane Foster Thor, Carol Danvers, Black Panther, and Namor the Submariner. While it's only given over a single page, Jane Foster had been transported to Doomguard, the location where the Thor Corps resides as a police force of Battleworld under Doom. Black Panther and Namor the Submariner had been transported to Egyptia, a section of Battleworld from a universe where Moses never led an exodus from Egypt, and Carol Danvers had been sent to Bar Sinister. In addition to this, with our last video, we had touched on the idea of an enigmatic being named the Prophet leading a revolution in Battleworld. Taking a sort of Game of Thrones attitude to the story, Hickman established that on its face, the barons of Battleworld under Doom were all loyal without question, but in truth, were completely split down the middle. Now something I want to do here real quick is talk about Maestro. With a future imperfect story saw him stuck in his own head and destined to spend the rest of his life believing that he had defeated Doom, in the main Secret Wars story, he's in his normal form and perfectly aware of everything that's going on. While Hickman may or may not explain how this happened, this particular issue is one of the reasons why tie-ins can be a problem for major stories. There's no real unifying element except for the story itself. And so we don't really have a choice here but to assume that either the tie-in didn't happen, or something took place to rouse the Maestro out of his illusion. But regardless, in terms of the story, what Hickman does here is play on the arrogance of Doom and that he assumes that his barons are loyal to a fault. While some like Apocalypse follow Doom due to his belief of survival of the fittest and only the strongest should rule, others like Sinister have more ambiguous motives. And so all of this comes to a head in issue number 7 when we pick up with the fallout of the Prophet's revolt, growing beyond control. Amassing an army huge in size and composed of various characters from throughout Battleworld, some of whom have powers and some of whom don't, the revolution comes knocking on the door of Doomstat, where it's revealed that the Prophet is none other than Maximus the Mad. Now for those who are unaware, Maximus is the inhuman brother of Black Bolt, king of the Inhumans, but also possesses a genius-level intellect as a result of his exposure to the Terrigen myths. Like the other survivors of the Ultimate Universe and the main Marvel Universe, Maximus seems to be leading this revolution for the purpose of toppling Doom. Whether this is due to altruism and that he's trying to do the right thing, or because he has his own motives is unknown, since Maximus himself is ambiguous when it comes to his motives for any particular situation. However, the schemes of Maximus are short-lived in the face of the combined efforts of Bar Sinister, Madeline Pryor and her goblins, and Apocalypse's forces. Seeing this as an opportunity to turn against Doom and end his rule, Sinister turncoats and along with Carol Danvers, their forces attack Madeline Pryor and her army of goblins. However, in the midst of their attack on Madeline and her goblins, Sinister is caught unawares by an explosion from behind, resulting in his head being severed from his neck, and when the smoke clears, he's greeted by the arrival of Holocaust. To sidetrack for a second, Holocaust was a being originating from the Age of Apocalypse story with unknown origins. While it was claimed that he was the son of Apocalypse, this is largely left ambiguous and instead, he simply served as one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen. Furthermore, with Apocalypse arriving on the battlefield, the indication from Hickman seems to be that because Apocalypse was serving as a Baron of the Age of Apocalypse territory but was unable to move outside of his own boundaries, he quite literally grew bored of stagnation. As a result, he delights in the idea of being on a battlefield and testing the weak so that they can prove themselves strong or be destroyed. And so after a bit of banter between Apocalypse and Sinister himself, the battlefield is met with the arrival of the Thor Corps. However, rather than being there for the purpose of quelling the conflict, it's revealed that Jane Foster has incited revolution within the ranks of the Thor Corps after revealing the truth of Battleworld and that Doom is not a god, but an all-powerful being who pulled realities together after the collapse of the multiverse. As a result, the Thor Corps is in complete and total disarray, with civil war breaking out between those who believe Jane Foster and those who don't. Where the battle is short-lived, with Jane Foster, Ultimate Thor, and others coming out on top, the group takes their leave from Doomguard, at which point the entire battlefield descends into complete and total chaos. With the remnants of the Thor Corps fighting against the forces of Apocalypse and Madeline Pryor by allying themselves against Doom with Sinister and Carol Danvers, Susan Storm, Valeria Richards, and Black Swan watch alongside Doom as the situation unfolds. Now, what Hickman does here is use the situation to provide dissent among the ranks of Doom's own house, and that to Susan Storm, the Thor Corps swore absolute allegiance to Doom and has obeyed every order without question. However, suddenly the Thor Corps has turned against Doom, indicating that they know something that Susan doesn't, which has caused them to turn against Doom and join the revolution. Now back on the battlefield, what Hickman does is provide those of us who are Apocalypse fans with a true depiction of his power, and that he single-handedly is able to take on a full contingent of the Thor Corps. If I can be a little bold here, this is particularly awesome to me because I've been an Apocalypse fan for years, and I felt like this display was a reflection of just how powerful Apocalypse is, and that between his shapeshifting, control of his atomic structure, and so on, he's someone that could easily stand against some of the strongest foes. However, in the midst of the fight, the battlefield is met with the arrival of Maestro and his army of Hulks, referred to as the Worldbreakers, all of whom possess the same level of strength as Worldbreaker Hulk from the World War Hulk storyline. At this point, we transition to Project 42 with the Ultimate and main Marvel versions of Reed Richards. What we learn is that this entire revolution, as it's being led by Maximus, including Sinister's betrayal and the arrival of the Hulks, has all been orchestrated by Ultimate Reed as a distraction that will allow himself, the main Marvel Reed, and Star-Lord to enter the Castle of Doom alongside Black Panther with the Infinity Gauntlet and in his rule. Now, the conversation between Reed Richards and Black Panther is of stupendous importance here, in that the two are extremely close friends by way of their intelligence, as well as the experiences that they've shared as part of the Illuminati, and so the two recognize that their mission is quite literally a last-ditch effort scenario, and that if they fail, they will likely die and Battleworld will continue under the rule of Doom. What's also funny here is the banter between Black Panther and Namor. As sworn enemies who both annihilated the other's empire during time runs out leading up to Secret Wars, the conversation between the two is filled with jibes as much as it is animosity, and so I think a legitimate argument can be made here that even if the two aren't the best of friends, at the very least, they share a common respect for one another. And so with the two standing before the wall separating Battleworld from the dead and Ultron robots, Black Panther destroys the wall and enters. Using the power of the Infinity Gauntlet, Black Panther is able to curb the zombies' desire for flesh and in the process, offer them a chance to use the Siege Courageous to eliminate the zombie plague from their bodies and start their lives anew. While some stand against the idea and that they view their lives as simple due to the fact that they simply exist to eat flesh and can't truly die, because all of them were heroes or superpowered beings in some form or fashion prior to contracting the zombie plague, Black Panther appeals to this aspect of their personalities by telling them that should they choose to use the Siege Courageous to start over, they can fight alongside Black Panther for glory and honor. With that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.